Now, while the sugarcane industry may be a part of Todos Santos' distant past, the sweets tradition is still very much alive. Sergio took me to this popular collection of little roadside stalls at the edge of town that sells the vast array of local specialties. Ah, yes. This is a beautiful sweets tradition. This one I don't know. What is that?
Sugar in a form called charamusca.
Charamusca?
Or trompada.
Oh, that sounds like it's good. It must be really hard stuff.
It is really
you just
hard.
break it off?
Or a teeth. Yeah.
Or this is the Damiana herb, right?
Yeah, this is the one that in Todos Santos they say is aphrodisiac, and people drink it almost every day.
An aphrodisiac of Todos Santos.
Yes.
And they make tea out of it?
Tea. Or an alcoholic beverage.
An alcoholic beverage as well.
Of course. Yeah.
But it looks like the big thing here must be these little empanadas,
The specialty in this place, I think they really like here is cajeta.
Cajeta?
Cajeta is what everybody buys.
I can see them making them all over there.
Wow.
They're all folding them up and
Yeah.
making that beautiful little rope edge. Super light, flaky crust.
And this is kind of like a tortilla de harina, the same kind of material.
Wow. That is really good. Muchísimas gracias, señor. Muchas gracias. Because of the rare freshwater sources that exist here, the area around Todos Santos is a major agricultural spot. Sergio and I stopped at one of the local organic farms. They grow all kinds of produce here, from lettuce and New Zealand spinach to beautiful ripe strawberries, red bananas. It may seem like a no-brainer in this arid terrain, nopal cactus. They grow a relatively spineless variety of nopal that they pick very young, when it's totally delicious and tender. There are many delicious ways to prepare nopal, but Sergio knew of a place in town, tucked in the back of a tiny convenience store, that uses them in a unique way. They infuse handmade tortillas with a puree of nopal. Juan starts by making a pretty standard wheat flour dough for his tortillas. Then he slices up some nopal, scoops it into a blender, adds a little water, and blends it until it's completely smooth. If it isn't smooth, the tortillas will fall apart when he presses them out. Then he works the nopal mixture along with some additional flour into that tortilla dough. There's a final luxurious touch. Juan works some garlic butter into the dough. And when it's smooth and homogeneous, he puts the dough into a press that portions it into equal-sized pieces that get rolled into little balls. Next, the balls of cactus-flavored tortilla dough get flattened on a heated press before they're tossed onto a hot griddle, where Juan's wife, Maria, manages the baking and flipping and cooling. Muy delicado porque
No.
botando. Garlic, butter, and then that little hint of the nopal.
That very little bit. It's very subtle.
It's subtle, it's a little green. Cactus isn't the only classic desert food, though I have to admit there's a lot of it here to cook. Sergio and I drove miles and miles on rutted dirt roads through all that cactus and through mesquite thickets to reach our next stop, the home of Doña Ramona and her family. These folks are experts in making a rustic desert cuisine, especially that iconic dish they call machaca, the dish that features dried beef.
Rick Bayless, Doña Ramona.
Mucho gusto.
Gracias, igualmente.
Doña Ramona showed us the cut of local grass-fed beef that they use for machaca, while her son Antonio demonstrated how to slice and salt the meat. The meat then gets hung up for 3 or 4 days to dry in a small screened-in structure. Remember, it's really warm and dry here. Antonio brought in some beef that had been hanging for a few days and was dry enough for us to use for machaca. Berta laid the dried meat over hot coals to heat it through and crisp it a little. Then she dropped the meat into water to soften it. It was something I'd never seen done before. And finally, the pounding, the machacando, from which this machaca dish gets its name. It's stone against stone, crushing the fibers of the dried meat into a sort of fluffy-looking mass. Berta also pounded a clove of garlic into the meat to enhance its flavor. While we were taking care of the meat, Concepcion, Doña Ramona's daughter-in-law, had been chopping up some onions and poblano. In a clay cazuela, and this is a cazuela that Doña Ramona had made herself, the onion and poblano were cooked in lard over an open fire on an earthen hearth that Doña Ramona's husband had made for her a half-century ago when they were first married. Finally, the pounded meat was stirred into the cazuela. While the machaca was cooking, Berta made a nopal dish with dried guajillo chilies and fresh cheese. It was the perfect deserty accompaniment to that machaca. El sabor es increíble. What I love about it is that flavor of the meat. It's so rich, and the lard that they've rendered from the little pigs around here.
Oh yeah, I like the texture. It's kind of crunchy.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they pounded it and then fried it till it's kind of crispy, crunchy.
Really, really good.